His mother.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Girl, he done did it. He done did it.
Welcome to the podcast. Oh no, girl, yes. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And then thank you in advance. Thank you for those of you who listen to us every week. Really appreciate you guys that enjoyed our last episode featuring our moms. They had a kick being a
I had so much good feedback from that.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Oh, y'all don't like listening to us? Y'all just want to hear what our mom.
I know, it's like we didn't have our moms on every week. I don't even know how that would go discussing this particular topics that we have. But I will say, I was telling my mom last week, she had never heard of Kevin Samuels. Mm-hmm. And I told my mom, I said, there's this guy, he has this platform, these things he says, da, 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 da. And then I had to tell her all that to tell her he passed away. Now, I remember the day that he passed away, you and I were talking and we had talked a full conversation. And it wasn't until the end of the conversation that I said to you, hey, did you hear something about Kevin Samuels dying? And at that point, it wasn't confirmed and it wasn't top of mind.
I hadn't even heard of it at that point. Because I was
you had been working all day, hadn't even heard the rumor. So the next day it was confirmed. And we have never done an episode specifically talking about Kevin Samuels. Obviously, a good majority of the things he says go against most of anything we would ever say. But I feel like if we had to be honest, I don't think we ever gave a whole lot of energy to him or what he said either way, you know. So I don't think we've ever thought of him as a topic. He is going to be a topic today only because of his untimely passing. I will say my experience of Kevin Samuels has been, I haven't seen his videos. I don't watch him. I don't follow him. I usually find out things that he has said because somebody says it to me. And when I hear it, I'm like the last few weeks I was being called a leftover and I didn't know why so many different men were referring to me as a leftover. I'm like, what is this? Why y'all keep saying this?
Did you realize that before he died though? That's where it came from?
Yes. Okay. I realized that before he passed away. Okay. But, you know, because I'm a comedian and I'm backstage, you know, a lot of times we're joking and jonesing. And so by the time I say something, a dude is like, oh, you a leftover anyway. And I'm like, literally, what is that? But it wasn't until the second dude called me a leftover that I think, why are two different dudes calling me that? You know, I was like, what are the odds? Two different men in two different spaces will call me a leftover. And I was like, what is this from? I thought it was like from a movie or something. And he was like, oh, Kevin Samuels said if you over there. And I said, oh, okay, never mind. Don't tell me. No, I'm good. Because at that point, I didn't give it any energy. But the irony is deafening.
Yeah. It's loud.
It's loud. It's
wow. I, like you, did not follow, obviously didn't follow Kevin Samuels. I'm obviously not his core audience anyway. But I would see, the only way I would see his post is if someone shared it, or if I was scrolling through Reels or scrolling through, you know, Facebook or something, and it just pops up. You know how these social media platforms just throw stuff in your face sometimes, see if you react to it. So that's the only time I would see anything. I did learn after he passed, and I know we'll talk about some of his older videos, but I learned after he passed that he actually started off doing clone reviews.
Oh, okay.
Those were his initial videos on his YouTube page.
He was an image consultant.
Yes, and he was just telling people what to buy and, you know, what fragrances gave off what type of aromas and stuff like that. That was his thing initially.
And that's what's interesting when you talk about initially, and we see this for so many people, not just Kevin Samuels. And we even talked about Donald Trump, how people will start out in something and don't feel like they're getting the support they could get if they cater to a certain demographic. And usually the best way to cater to a demographic is to make them feel superior, to make the fear mongering is a big part of it. So you get them kind of afraid and riled up, and now we must take back the country. And I feel like, you know, some of Kevin Samuels' earlier videos that I've only seen within the last few days since his passing, as you mentioned, you know, he was an image consultant and his videos had a different focus. We have a clip that we wanted to drop of Kevin Samuels 4 years ago in his car talking about what he could do to get more followers. Check this out.
And a lot of times guys don't want to hear that truth. We just don't. You know, if I come on here talking about, you know, female nature, such and so forth. And if I would start bashing women or talking noise, oh man, the likes and everything will go through the roof. But when you start talking to men saying, guys, cheap is some of the most expensive stuff out there. You gotta do better with.
Okay, so he did exactly what he kind of seemed like he didn't want to do. His earlier videos, he was calling men on the carpet, and he realized that if I was dogging out women or saying bad things about women, y'all would love that. Y'all would follow that. Y'all would like that. And he started doing that, and he was 100% right.
Yeah, he knew.
It just like when Donald Trump said if he ever ran for president, he would run as a Republican. And then years later, he had never identified as Republican, had contributed to Democratic candidates most of his life. And he knew, but Republicans I can cater to their fears and I can cater to their insecurities, and they will make me their leader.
Mm-hmm. I can be the mouthpiece for them. Mm-hmm. That bold mouthpiece.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and like you said, a lot of influencers do this. Mm-hmm. And it's all often to their benefit. They want to get something, once they find something that sticks, they're like, okay, let me go ahead and let me go all in.
Exactly.
And so he did the same in that video. When I was watching it earlier, I was like, because I had never seen that one. I saw some old stuff where he wasn't even talking about relationships at all. And I thought he just got into the relationship thing, here recently. But it's funny how, it makes perfect sense. I mean, even in his insanity, I get it.
Right. And I think that's kind of the whole push of all of these kind of men-centric podcasts, because guess what? They go viral for saying these, oh yeah, it's cheating if my girl has an Instagram account, like the most asinine things. Now, I've heard this term thrown around, and I just Googled it for the first time this week, and I didn't even know what this term was. Incels. I've heard people referred to as incels, and I finally Googled it and laughed out loud.
What did the Google definition say?
The Google said an online community of men who basically discuss how women don't want to date them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was hilarious, because that's how I would describe it. I didn't even know that's what that word meant.
Yeah. I've heard that term, and I've heard it used in extreme terms when discussing someone who is an incel. They're often dangerous people that you wouldn't want to necessarily be around anyway. They hate women to a standard that is not even easily verbalized. So yeah.
And so what's interesting about that, I think a few months ago, somebody that I know, a comedian, and had posted something. It said women would rather be single to talk about being single than to be in a relationship or to date somebody. And so since I'm a single woman who talks about being single and has a podcast, I thought, I should respond to this. And I said, as a single woman who has a podcast about dating, we would like to meet someone, but we would prefer to be single than to be in a bad situation. And when I tell you, the men came on that post and trashed me and said I wasn't nothing and my vagina should be in a landfill and all these things. And I had never met these men. I didn't know these men. And they don't know me, obviously, but as I went through their profiles to figure out who are these men that are going so hard personally on me, I never said anything about them. I've never dated them. I didn't say all men. I just said, as a woman who is single, who talks about single, I would rather be single than be in a bad relationship. It was not specific to anyone. As I went through their profiles, I realized, you know what? I will never go back and forth with these dudes, because that is their experience. They have seen women rather be single than to give them a chance. A lot of them look like mutants, but just beyond the physical appearance, because ugly men get women. Their personalities, the things they post on their page was gross. They post a lot of anti-women things or violent type things. And so I realized, you know what? These men hate women for very good reason to them. Yeah. Very good reason why they hate women, for sure. Because most women have probably rejected them. Most women have probably not given them the time of day. And so I can imagine, just like how I have feelings about men based on them not rejecting me, but wasting my time. And I'm like, I'm good on that.
Your feelings are true to you, just like their feelings are true to them.
And their feelings are true
to
them.
Their experience is what their experience is.
100%. I could never argue with no man's experience with any woman on any level. except for unless they dated me, then I would argue with them about their experience with me, but just men in general. But also these men, these incels, I guess I'll call them, for whatever reason, they aren't the desirables. However, they found their power through Kevin Samuels because Kevin Samuels gave low vibrating men a vocabulary to feel better about themselves. And it's the same reason why you have gangs. A kid just don't have a family or don't feel like they belong. It's the same reason why you have any kind of grouping, even if it's a violent, negative pathology or ideology to the group, people want to feel belonging. And so now these men, where they don't have the connections with women they may desire, they had a connection or have a connection with all these men who also feel the same way they do. And then what they did is then women like us who didn't know about Kevin Samuels or didn't listen to Kevin Samuels, they came to us to let us know what Kevin Samuels said about you. And I'm like,
about us, right?
Couldn't have possibly been about me. I ain't never met the dude. He couldn't have never said that about me. I don't even know who that is. He said something about me.
Yeah.
And then that's when they give you the generalization of the age, the race. You got kids, this value system, this rating system, and these men, these low vibrating men took it and ran with it because it just made them feel better about themselves. Right. And again, that happens in a lot of different ways in a lot of different situations. It might be your church. You might get really involved with your church because it gives you that sense of community or belonging. And now you're anti anybody who ain't at church every day. It's a lot of ways that people will find you. And that's why you have to be careful about where your soul is, right? Because you have multiple soulmates throughout your lifetime. It just depends on where your soul is right now.
Right.
He threatened a lot of women with dying alone.
Well, see, okay, let's get on that. And it's not even about Kevin Samuels at this point. Just like it's not always about Trump. It's more about the community that they created.
100%.
The whole. I'm sick and tired. I feel like we get on here every week and talk about. I'm sick and tired of this narrative that the only path to happiness, the only path to success, is to have a partner by your side. That may have been true 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. We gotta erase that narrative. Mm-hmm. We gotta stop looking at life like, oh, that's why you're gonna be alone. Well, I'm not gonna be happy because if I'm gonna be happy and alone, I'll take that every time.
Well, and this is the other
you know what? And then 1 out of every 2 couples that get married in America, they're gonna end up alone too.
Literally.
There's no shade on anybody who's ever been divorced. These are statistics.
It's just hard to be with somebody. It's
These
hard
are
to stay together.
Most of us gonna end up alone.
And you know what? I ain't never seen bunk beds in a casket. It's literally designed that way. You are designed to die by yourself. That's literally how that works. But here's the thing about that. I can have compassion, and I think I've shared this before. I can have compassion for men by the way young boys are raised in this society. They don't get a chance to be creative without being labeled effeminate or gay. They don't get a chance to be emotional without being labeled effeminate or gay. They don't get a chance to ever really be fully well-rounded people, right? And when you find a man who has that emotional bandwidth and intelligence, he's probably done some work. He probably is definitely standing out of the crowd because that's not the norm for straight men in America. Now, that does not mean men do not have a responsibility to show up and figure out how to be a human. But I think the reason why men always try to offer single women this idea of you're going to die alone, you're going to die with your cat, is because they don't get a chance to be fully formed people. And so we're somewhere with our friends, with our families, working on our hobbies, traveling, starting a business, writing a book, we somewhere exploring all these different things that we dream of. And men are raised to believe they're only good to be the provider or only good to make money. And so when they don't have a person, and I think that's why they always have people, even if they don't care about them, they just can't stand their own company for some reason.
I always grew up thinking the pressure was always on women to get married and procreate. But dare I say, it's more pressure on men.
Because so much of them
some of it's self-inflicted. But I mean, society, I think, puts more pressure on women in general. Yeah. But I think men in general, like, they're like, if you are alone, and you know, that's like the worst thing in the world.
Because think about it, 100%. Because why would a man who is fully formed and having a great time care anything about any single woman that ain't with him or ain't getting married, or not even not with him? I usually get attacked by men that I was never an option for them, you know. So it's not even like it's personal. And so it's this thing of like, listen. The way the patriarchal society was set up, women couldn't vote, women couldn't get education, women couldn't own land, women couldn't open a bank account. We had to have a man to move through this world in any shape, form, and fashion. And we were getting married off at very young ages, and we were going to have our families, and that was life. And then what happens, as they will say negatively, women start getting all these damn rights. Well, what happened with that was, well, if I can open a bank account and I can buy my own house and I can vote and I can get my education, I don't know that I would suffer through this particular situation that my grandma suffered through because she didn't have an option. You know, even our parents, our moms said, you know, it wasn't about options and choices. It was just about, this is what you do. And now we're at a place where I'm not going to do it just to do it if I'm not enjoying it. Let me bring up a point about Mother's Day. As a woman who does not have children, I'm not childless, but I was a woman who doesn't have children. I think motherhood, or anyone who has ever given birth, carried a baby, adopted a baby, taken in a foster kid, anything having to do with any kind of thing, I think that is the hardest thing in the world anyone could ever do. And that is literally why I have never done it, because it does not look easy to me. It don't necessarily look fun. You know, it has all its benefits of if you want to do it. My mom is a woman who always wanted to have kids. And so even though she was divorced and raised her 4 kids, she always made us feel like, but this is what I wanted, was these kids. Right. You know, and I know a lot of children don't grow up with that. You know, they kind of are the byproduct of a bad situation. But with that being said, it was not lost on me recently for Mother's Day how many women want to be away from their families on that day? Take the kids and go somewhere. Hey, how about I don't have to do, you know, and it was this thing. I saw this one woman on TikTok who said, does anybody else get mad around Mother's Day? She said, because it just reminds me of the bad choice I made and who I had babies with. And I don't get celebrated this day because there ain't nobody there to celebrate me and it was like all these different feelings where women are becoming more empowered and being honest, like, y'all, it is not all that. But I respect how hard it is. I respect what a commitment it is for you to have a kid, one, to make a baby, to carry a baby, to have a baby come out, to feed it, to keep it alive, to have it be interesting, you know? And so, but again, it ain't for everybody. And even for the people that's doing it, if they ever had an honest face, they're gonna say, no, it ain't that. I did it because I wanted to, and this is what I want to do. But It ain't that. What y'all trying to act like. So when a man comes to a single woman who doesn't have kids and tries to project a bad time on her, it's like, sir, you're not even with your children's mother. Yes. You have children in this world that are being raised by somebody and you're not even involved, sir. Why is you over here worried about whether I have kids? Mm-hmm. Literally, it's the programming. It's the whole country. But what Kevin Samuels did was give these men a community because they don't have no woman. And a lot of the things that people would say is that they in love with each other. These men want to be with each other, you know, and that truly is one of those things where it's not that we saying they all gay, but you know what? They have found a community in each other. And that is their safe space. They do not feel safe trying to engage and interact with women because we're horrible, because we're masculine, because we're not submissive, because of all these things. And so, yeah, y'all literally deserve each other. But I had never heard of somebody telling me I was going to die alone as much as that particular person who passed away. I ain't never thought about him passing away. I ain't never given voice to him passing away. I ain't never thought about him on no level. But I would always hear about how I would die alone by virtue of something.
No, with your cats. You remember your cats.
And my cats, yes. That's why I was going to die alone with my cats. Now, I've heard a thing that says it is harder to convince. It's easier to deceive someone than it is to convince them they've been deceived. And from that earlier clip where we know that he shifted his messaging in order to get followers, in order to get engagements, in order to get likes, and he changed what he felt and what he said and what he, promoted in order to get this community of men, and it worked perfectly. How many of these men now that are very, even more upset with us Black women because we didn't we didn't put together no flower arrangements. And it's never about the person. It's never about the person that's the leader. It's about the community that follows them.
And I'll throw this out there. I know we're about to wrap up, but there are major parallels I see in that community and white supremacy.
100%.
I could go into so many details.
So many parallels.
But it starts with women not having rights, just like Black people or people of color not having rights. And then the more they began to build themselves up, the more the group in charge felt threatened, or the authority group felt threatened. It's the same. It's that same type.
It's the exact same dynamic. And that's why a lot of times when women are talking about men, and we used this example before, men will say, I'm a man. You can't tell me about a man. It's like, just like a Black person can tell you more about white people than a white person can tell you. The oppressed can tell you about the oppressed, like in detail, with footnotes. And so it'll be interesting to see. It's lots of men, the red pill men and these incels and all these men with these podcasts. Somebody is going to try to raise themselves to be the heir apparent of this group of men. But I hope that through how he passed away and the logistics of it, I hope that it serves as a cautionary tale for some of these men of, this man was saying things that he didn't believe. This man was saying things that he wasn't living. This man was saying things that are not true or accurate. I actually have a friend who does parodies of Kevin Samuels. And he said, what Kevin Samuels does is tell half-truths. And what my grandma used to say is, a half-truth is a whole lie. Yeah. And that's why when people say, oh, but he's telling the truth, is he telling half-truths and then goes off the rails? Well, half a truth is a whole lie. If you're not telling the truth of a situation, you are telling a lie. It's lying by omission, pretty much, you know. So it'll be interesting to see how they pick up their pitchforks and how they see what the insurrection looks like from this moment in time. Of course, we don't wish death on anybody. We have no reason to celebrate anybody's passing. We are merely noting the ironic shift of how women who are living their own lives, paying their own attention, you know, like hydrating, moisturizing, not causing no problems, had to be introduced to this idea that that's why you gonna die alone. And you're like, wait, what? What happened?
Right.
What were we talking about? I wasn't looking for that. And it'll be interesting to see how they manage themselves. They've been pretty upset with us. And they said that we're horrible people. Yeah. And we didn't even do nothing.
Not a thing.
Now, allegedly right now, they say the family is going to start a GoFundMe to bury him. I would hope to believe that that's not true. We'll see that in the next few days.
I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure. I hope that's not true. But again, you know, these high value men, which was terminology that he offered these low vibrating men, that they were high value, or where we ranked. They would give us numbers and rankings and yell them to us as we were walking past them in the store and not interested in a conversation, and say, you a 4 anyway. You ain't even a 5. And it's like, wait, what? He said a lot of harmful things that caused a lot of harm in a lot of different ways. And I think not just women who may have taken some of those things to heart and felt like something was wrong with them, but I think it did harm to a lot of men who already were broken, that just needed somewhere to be. And they don't realize how that community probably has broken them even more, but they just needed somebody.
Yeah.
And they found each other.
God bless them.
God bless them, one and all.
This is what it is.
I mean, that's rough. The irony of it.
It's so sad. I think it's sad.
Oh, it's very, I mean, it almost doesn't even feel real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've had moments where I've been looking at videos or reading about it, and I'm like, this really doesn't even feel real.
It feels like a different universe to me. Just
it's
very extreme. So
because this man was very young, you know, 57 years old, and appeared to be in good health. I mean, he would often talk about overweight women and them dying of a heart.
He talked about overweight men, so he did. He just talked about
overweight. Anyone been overweight, and we all know that weight is not an indicator of health.
Right. Right. Well, we know that. Yeah.
Yeah, we know that. And so, but again, I wouldn't be nowhere talking about who all had a greater chance of dying for any reason. Yeah. Because it just ain't my business. I'm somewhere trying to make sure it ain't my day. But it was interesting. The online conflict between, no one killed the man, no one assassinated him. It's not like anybody wanted him dead, but
Right.
because Black women who had been the target recently of some of the rhetoric, didn't really feel anything. then we were already horrible people,
Right.
as he told it. But then we were horrible for saying what was for dinner.
Yeah.
As far as
I really don't believe in. I believe in keeping it real in life and in death. So you'll never hear me just say something nice about somebody just because they died if I didn't really enjoy them in life. And then that sounds horrible.
No,
I don't have to say anything at all, though. That's the thing. I can be quiet. I don't have to say anything.
To say.
I don't have to praise someone just because they died.
Right.
You don't either. Just know
and that's the thing about anybody's funeral. They say you should live your life in such a way that folks ain't lying at your funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who I feel like wasted this trip, this is a projection of my standards and values, right? But it's like, what are you doing with this trip? And are you helping people? Are you encouraging people? Are you inspiring people? Or are you speaking to people's brokenness? And I think we've always wanted to do this here on this podcast, where we have a very strong male listenership. We do not bash men. We can talk about our unique challenges in trying to date men, but we've never come on here. I mean, I may have mentioned all men are trash once or twice. Yeah. But I mean, y'all know that's true. That ain't even bad. That's just little information. But no, y'all know that we love men. That's the only reason we got a podcast about dating, is because we love men, and we would love to find a man that we can make a wonderful partnership with, but not at sacrifice and that at all costs for our sanity and peace. And so, it is what it is. So hopefully anyone who's listening to our podcast can find a community of encouragement and upbuilding and life and love, and not a place where you come because you're broken and you partner with other broken people who want to go out and break more people.
No, that's I hope y'all never gotten that vibe from us. I don't think we giving off that. It's all about encouraging you to live your best life and choose happiness. And choose joy.
As long as you have it, live your best life. Amen. Yeah. Amen. Well, y'all, that's all we got today. It still feels like a fever dream, but and please don't involve yourself in too many of these online conversations. They're not adding time to your life in any way, shape, form, or fashion. You ain't got to argue with nobody about nothing. Just feel what you feel, and then just log off. You ain't got to write what you feel. You ain't got to argue with nobody about what they feel. And hopefully we will somewhere come out on the other side of this in love and together. Amen. Amen. In the meantime, and until next time. Oh, no, he didn't.
Girl. Yes, he did.